Chapter 1. A Thirst Worth Dying For. On the desert moon of Chiron, 7, water wasn't just valuable, it was sacred. Every drop was controlled by the ruling warlords, and anyone caught stealing it faced punishments so brutal that even hardened soldiers looked away. To the ruling clans, water was life. To the poor, it was hope. To Lyra, a young alien girl with shimmering silver skin and bright teal eyes, it was the only thing that could save her dying mother. Their settlement was one of the poorest in the outer ring. The wells had long dried up, and the rains no longer blessed their land. Lyra's mother lay weak, dehydrated, and fading. So Lyra did what no one else dared. She approached the water keep, a fortified reservoir guarded by brutal enforcers known as the Iron Hands. Her small fingers trembled as she filled a tiny clay jar. One drop for her mother, one chance to save her. But before she could slip away, a metal hand clamped around her wrist. Chapter 2. The Punishment. Thief. The word echoed like a death sentence. The Iron Hands dragged Lyra to the punishment platform, an elevated stone slab overlooking the sands. Crowds gathered, some out of fear, others out of morbid curiosity. Lyra struggled, crying, her fragile frame unable to resist. She knew what came next. The Iron Hands didn't just punish thieves, they made examples. And the sentence for stealing water was amputation. Her arm was strapped down. A mechanical blade hovered ominously above her elbow, humming with deadly energy. She begged. She screamed. Her tears mixed with desert dust. "Please, my mother, she will die without this water." The chief enforcer raised his hand to deliver command. The crowd held its breath. The blade began to descend, until a human voice thundered through the courtyard. "Stop." Chapter 3. The Reckless Human. All heads turned. A tall human pushed his way through the crowd. His hair was wind-beaten, and dust clung to his gear. A blaster hung at his hip, and worn dog tags glinted in the sun. This was Commander Jack Vance, the off-world human who had wandered into Chiron 7 only weeks earlier. A man known for taking risks, challenging authority, and doing the exact opposite of what was expected. He marched right up to the platform. "Release her," he demanded. The chief enforcer laughed. "This is not your world. Human, our laws. Your laws punish a starving child for wanting to keep her mother alive." Jack's voice cut through the desert heat. He stepped closer. "Let her go or you'll answer to me." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. No one challenged the Iron Hands. No one stood up against the water keepers. But Jack wasn't from this world, and he didn't fear them. The chief enforcer sneered and lowered the blade anyway. Jack didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, he drew his blaster and shot the mechanism, sparks erupting as the blade fell harmlessly to the ground. Chapter 4. The Escape. Chaos erupted. The Iron Hands lunged forward, weapons raised. Jack grabbed Lyra, freeing her from the restraints. "Can you run?" he asked urgently. She nodded, trembling. Together they sprinted through the narrow alleys. Blaster bolts sizzled past them, Jack shielding the alien girl with his own body. When they reached the outskirts, Jack scooped her into his arms and leapt over a ledge into an old mining tunnel. They ducked behind collapsed beams as soldiers rushed past the entrance. Only when the sounds faded did Lyra finally look up at him. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why would you save me?" Jack pulled out a canteen, human military issue, and placed it in her hands. Because justice shouldn't depend on who's holding the water. Chapter 5. The Mother. Jack followed Lyra to her home. Not much more than a mud hut half buried in sand. Inside, her mother lay on a simple mat, barely breathing. Lyra tilted the canteen to her mother's lips. Just a few drops, but it was enough to bring life back into her eyes. She whispered something in her native language, a blessing. A thank you. Jack knelt. We're not done yet. He gave them his entire canteen. All of it. Every drop. Chapter 6. A New Beginning. Word spread quickly. The human who defied the iron hands. The girl who was supposed to lose her arm. The mother who survived. The water keepers demanded Jack surrender. But something unexpected happened. The people of the outer ring began to rise. For the first time in decades, they had hope. Jack's defiance sparked a rebellion, and the alien families who once cowered now stood tall, demanding fairness, demanding mercy, demanding change. The Iron Hands hesitated. Their power came from fear, and fear was slipping through their fingers. Chapter 7, the final message. Weeks later, Lyra and her mother were thriving. Jack visited often, teaching Lyra how to shoot, how to climb, how to survive. One evening, as the twin sun set, Lyra approached him with the clay jar she had stolen. "I want you to have this," she said softly. "It's empty, but it reminds me never to forget the man who saved my life." Jack smiled and placed the jar gently in his pack. "Keep your arms safe, kid. You're going to need it." She giggled and hugged him. In that moment, under the fading light of Chiron 7, a reckless human and a grateful alien girl formed a bond that would reshape a world divided by power, fear, and thirst. The end. Weeks after Jack saved Lyra, Chiron 7 simmered with tension. The water keepers had tried everything. New rules, harsher guards, fear campaigns. But the outer ring no longer bowed. It wasn't Jack alone who changed things. It was Lyra, the little girl who had once trembled on the punishment platform. Her story spread across settlements. Mothers whispered it to their children. Fathers repeated it at fire pits. Elders spoke it in meetings. And slowly, Lyra became something powerful. A symbol. Proof that the water keepers could be challenged. Proof that cruelty had limits when courage was awake. The uprising, when the water keepers tried to seize control of another settlement. Expecting obedience, they found the streets full, not with soldiers, with families, with workers, miners, children, all standing shoulder to shoulder, empty jars raised high in defiance. No more. The Iron Hands hesitated. Not a single weapon had been drawn, yet the crowd's unity felt sharper than any blade. Then Jack stepped forward, holding up a broken iron hand gauntlet he'd taken during their chase weeks earlier. "You rule through fear," he told them. "But look around. Fear doesn't live here anymore." The enforcers lowered their weapons. All at once, one by one, power slipped from their fists like dry sand. A new world. 2 days later, the Waterkeep collapsed, not by war, but by withdrawal. No one showed up to guard it. Families walked in freely and filled their jars. Children splashed in the shallows for the first time in their lives. And at the center of it all stood Lyra. Her silver skin gleamed as she helped elders fill barrels and carried water to newborn mothers. She moved freely, her arms strong, her smile wide. She no longer feared the Waterkeep. She owned her story. Jack's departure. One morning, Jack packed his gear. His mission on Chiron 7 was complete. This wasn't his world, but he had changed it anyway. Lyra caught him at the edge of the settlement, breathless. "You're leaving?" she asked, eyes shimmering with the same fragile innocence from the day he saved her. Jack knelt down. "You don't need me anymore," he said gently. "You save yourselves." "But you saved me first," she whispered, "and I will never forget." Jack placed something into her hand, his old military dog tag. "To remind you," he said, "that even one act of courage can change a world." Lyra threw her arms around him, and for a moment the desert winds fell silent. Then Jack turned and walked into the horizon. Twin suns rising behind him, a lone figure carrying a clay jar tied to his pack. The same jar she once risked her life to fill. Epilogue, the legend lives. Years later, storytellers still spoke of the human who stopped the blade, of the girl who became a symbol, of the day the desert moon learned that water belonged to everyone. And in a small home near the New Free Well, an older Lyra kept Jack's dog tag beside her bed, polished smooth by time and memory. Whenever travelers asked about it, she smiled and said, "This belonged to the man who taught us that mercy is stronger than fear." The end.